What up? I'm running out of pocket space. Quads got too big. Just mostly hold my quad. Everybody doing? Great. Awesome. I don't know, is this two mic thing? Is this thing, I can stand here? Okay, sweet. So, we only have like 50 minutes, so let's get right into it. I have a conflict of interest to announce. I'm a co-founder of Renaissance Periodization. So everything I say in this talk is really just designed to make us more money, but you guys already knew that. So if you want to send us some money, please do. But all jokes aside, just the facts today. So it's funny because when I submitted this talk a long time ago to the NSCA, when they asked me to talk here, had only theorized 5 constructs of the adherence process, but then we sort of added one more since then, so now it's 6. So you folks paid for 5 constructs, but you're getting a free construct today. Doesn't that feel good? It feels nice, right? So we're going to talk about from inspiration to passion, and this entire talk is about adherence. It's about how to get folks to stick to a plan. How many of you have a problem that your personal training clients are too adherent? They just stick to the plan so much, they get crazy results, and they leave you because they're in phenomenal shape, and you run out of money. No, not a problem. Probably the other way around. So here's the thing. We know a lot about how to diet, right? A lot of this is going to be diet-centered, but it can apply to training as well. And we know that dieting, and especially when you're consulting your personal training clients about diet, how many of you folks have your clients asked you about diet tips or how to diet? Yeah, everyone. It makes sense. And we know that a lot of diets, they work because they generate a calorie deficit, right? But we know that, yeah, okay, diets work, but a ton of people are still overweight. Probably a good portion of your clients are overweight. And one of the biggest reasons that we sort of know how diets work, you just eat less and everything works out, a lot of people are overweight primarily because of adherence. We know what to do, sort of in a theoretical sense, but it's tough to do it, or there are a variety of stumbling blocks. Now, how do we overcome this? How do we get people to be more adherent? Do we try to inspire more people? You guys ever like scroll an Instagram account, and it's like, I'm a fit coach, and my mission is to inspire as many people as possible. You're like, what have you ever done? Right? But a lot of people think they're inspiring people, and some people successfully do. But how far does that go? What about motivation? That's actually a different thing than inspiration. Is that important? Other people will say, forget about inspiration and motivation. You need willpower. You need discipline. Maybe they also have a point. So it turns out this situation of trying to get people to be more adherent is a little bit more complex than initially arranged. And it turns out the answer to how do we improve adherence is yes to all of those. Yes, we need to get people more inspired and more motivated, and we could all use a bit more willpower, but maybe all of this is in some kind of simple arrangement that can lead us to better results. Maybe it's not just all random. So here's the deal. When individuals first start dieting or training or whatever, they can benefit from being most in certain psychological states, like being inspired, for example. Later in the diet, when things get tough, first of all, how many people successfully start a diet? A bunch, right? How many people successfully get to later in the diet? Fewer, okay? So there's a drop-off at every stage of dieting, every stage of training, right? So later in the diet, maybe some other states can be more beneficial. Not exactly the same stuff that gets people into dieting might pull them through the middle, right? So if we are going to help folks diet properly or train properly and adhere to the plan, maybe we need to have our coaching reflect the timeline of this process. Maybe our coaching should understand that people's needs with how to help them adhere change as they go through the plan. And then, of course, address those one at a time. And it turns out there are 6, not 5, free construct today. There are 6 psychological constructs of adherence, and we can learn about them today and make sure that we're applying them properly to our clients at the right times. And here they are in order of their appearance. The first one is inspiration. Clearly, you have to get inspired to do anything. We'll get into more details about what it means, so on and so forth. After that, you get into motivation, which is actually a different construct altogether. Then we develop something called intention. We get into the use of discipline. Eventually, thank God, habits start catching up, and maybe, just maybe, we'll get to the last construct of passion, right? Which automatically refutes at least one piece of Instagram advice that we can just throw away. Some people say, I want to make people passionate about fitness. Okay? You don't take new people and make them passionate about something. Passion is something that grows after a long time. Maybe. And some people it doesn't ever develop and they just sort of reluctantly have habits. But we'll get into that in just a bit. Right? So when the diet begins or when the training process begins, these early factors dominate. They're the ones you should be paying attention to fostering. But as the diet goes on later, the later factors start to dominate. And if you try to keep attending to those early factors, you might be wasting your time a little bit. Right? Somebody who's been dieting for 12 weeks, if you try to get them inspired, they're like, I'm already inspired. I'm just having a problem developing habits. You're like, right, I don't know anything about habits, so sorry. I'll just keep inspiring you then. You just keep showing them cool YouTube videos of, I don't know, what kind of YouTube videos inspire? Bulldog's first walk. My wife and I, this is my wife, Dr. Crystal. She's a real doctor, not like me. So if you get sick, you just let her know. We watch a lot of English bulldog videos. How many of you, does anyone own an English bulldog? Oh, that's right, Brad, you own an English bulldog. They're ridiculous animals designed for nothing except to look absurd and entertain us, and I love them. I'm not so sure how that's inspirational, so let's get back into the talk. All right, so let's talk about inspiration. What is inspiration? Well, first of all, it's the earliest adherence factor in psychology, right? Here's the thing, everyone has to get inspired to start a diet or start being fit in some way, right? Nobody, you guys ever talk to someone who like started a big diet or started doing keto or something, and you're like, so what made you do it? And they're like, I don't know, I was just bored, so I started dieting. You're like, what? Nobody does that, right? Some kind of inspiration has to happen, and if it doesn't happen, you'll just never start. Now, inspiration can be positive or it can be negative, right? Dietary inspiration can be like, you showed up to give a talk at a conference at a hotel, and you wake up in the morning and your wife's still asleep, and you look at yourself in the mirror and you go, I look terrible. Now that could inspire you to start a diet. It's a sort of negative form of inspiration. Or it can be a positive form of inspiration. You're scrolling through Instagram and you see someone with like 80 abs, and you're like, wow. It's like meeting an astronaut when you're 10 years old. You're like, I want to be that. I want abs on my face, right? That is, wouldn't that be the ultimate goal? Why do you have to pull up your shirt if you can just show off your abs all the time? Give it some thought. So you can love, you can hate your look. You can love someone else's look. There's trade-offs to those we'll talk in a bit. Here's the thing. The real big kicker about inspiration, two things. One, it's necessary, for sure. So we can't say inspiration is not important. It's important. It has to happen. But point number two is that inspiration does give you that kick, but it fizzles out, sometimes in hours, right? What's a really good example of time course of inspiration? How many of you have seen the movie, it came out a couple years ago, Creed, one of the Rocky movies, right? How many of you know the second one's coming out? Oh my God, we're at the movie theater, like, we're gonna camp out. So how many of you walked out of the movie Creed and you were like, maybe throw a kick in there, you're like, I'm boxing right now, sign up, there's a gym. And it's like, it's 12 midnight on Saturday, you're like, tomorrow. You wake up tomorrow and you don't even remember what movie you saw. Right? So you feel super inspired, but inspiration just doesn't last that long, right? It straight up doesn't. So if we had to graph adherence behavior over time, inspiration can give us a big kick. It's that red curve. And then after, you're like, right? So something else has to take over afterwards. We can't continue to pump inspiration. It just doesn't last that long. But if we're going to help people get inspired, which we should, how do we do that? Well, first of all, lead by example. I am not going to go into what that means because you folks, a lot of you are personal trainers. How many of you have seen an unbelievably out-of-shape personal trainer and you kind of do one of these like, Yeah, it's strange. I don't know how they get clients. Well, I was a personal trainer. I was in super good shape. I got clients. How'd that work? Lies. Yeah, I was super nice. Like, the other trainers will be mean to you because they have abs on their faces. Me, I'm a regular guy. I can relate to you, right? But in any case, you have to lead by example. How many of you guys have ever gotten dietary advice from your completely over-fat uncle on Thanksgiving? And he's like, well, what you need to do is drop your carbs. And you're like, listen, Uncle Bill, clearly you know what you're talking about, right? Ridiculous. So you have to be at least walking the walk to be able to inspire. Another thing is, you don't want to humiliate people. You want to be positive and supportive. Luckily, in the United States, we live in a free society for the most part, vast majority. Guess what your personal training clients can do if you're way too mean to them and you humiliate them? It's super easy. They just straight up never show up again. And you see them with another trainer who's like all lovey-dovey and laughing. You're like, I made a mistake, right? So they're not a captive audience. They can just disappear. It's good to be positive and supportive, which probably works better in the long term anyway, right? Really good idea. You can educate them about the benefits of being on a diet that attends to their health and their body composition, and of course the risks of not, right? The good thing is as personal trainers, most of the people you're going to be working with diet kind of know about this already, right? So if you're like, hey, have you ever thought about dieting? You're like, yes, I knew you were going to guilt trip me about this. And then you have to be like, oh, I'm not guilt tripping you. Here's the good stuff that'll happen, and maybe they'll warm up to it, right? If you do success stories, right? So if you are familiar with Renaissance Periodization, RP Strength on Instagram, we have a whole account of like, it's like 100,000 followers on it of just transformations, like before and after, before and after. And it's been super successful, not because we have take like exotic athletes and make them superlative. We do a little bit of that too. But the transformation pictures that people like the best, the ones that seem to work, are pretty regular people looking pretty good for regular people. Does that make sense? Like if you have normal clients and you're like, check it out, Mr. Olympia, Sean Roden, they're going to be like, why are there abs on his face? And you're like, well, he trains his face all the time. What's wrong with you? Right? It's totally not relatable. You guys ever see people that are in unbelievably exotic shape and you're like, I don't even know anything about that. Your clients sure as heck don't know anything about that. So sort of giving them examples of people that were in pretty decent shape, meh shape, all the way to meh plus, right? Where you're like, wow, that person, that's pretty good. Then you go, hey, listen, Jim, you might be able to do this too. And they're like, oh, that sounds really great. So inspiration doesn't last. That whole thing, all the stuff I just said, that's the one kick. But after the kick is over, you're going to have to figure out that something's going to have to carry them a little bit further. So motivation could begin, right, after inspiration kicks you into a diet. Or you never hit the motivation thing and just quit 2 days later. How many people quit diets 2 days later? A lot. You guys ever see Facebook posts and Instagram posts on like January 1st, January 2nd? And you're just like just waging bets. You're like, let's check you out 2 days later. 2 days later, they're just pictures of pizza again. You're like, that was fast, right? So inspiration kicks you into a diet, then motivation takes over. Here's the thing. Motivation can be very clearly defined. It is the desire to do something about your goal. It is not as intense as inspiration. One of the big fallacies in adherence that people apply to themselves is they think they should have that Rocky Balboa feeling all the time. You guys know what I'm talking about? Rocky running up the steps. They think that, how many of you folks here, a quick raise of hands, feel relatively successful in your own diet and training endeavors? Like you're pretty on the ball most of the time, right? A ton of people outside this room, regular people in this hotel, think that you have the Rocky song playing in your head all the time. That's why they say stuff like, man, it must take a lot of discipline to do what you do. And you're like, I don't know, I just kind of habituated all this. I just have protein when I wake up. That's just what I do. So it turns out that motivation is less intense than inspiration, but it is an underlying desire to do something about your goal. It's not the kick, it's the pull. There's a very, very big difference there. Right? Now here's the thing. The good news about motivation is that it gets you to do stuff. The sort of bad news is that, well, the good news is it advances in waves, so you'll have a couple of days where you're just like kicking your meals in the face, like you're literally fighting your prepackaged meals and winning because they're defenseless pieces of food, right? So, and then there's other days where your motivation wanes for seemingly no reason at all. That's just how it works. You guys have clients come in like 1 week or like Monday through Wednesday and they're like doing weights. And they're like, put more weight on the bar, coach. This is crazy. I'm an animal. And then like on Thursday they come in and they're like, ah. And you're like, what's wrong? They're like, ah. And they're like, can we do easier stuff today? You're like, no, we can't do easier stuff today. They'll do the same thing with their meals. Motivation is not reliable for consistency, but it'll come back too. So you'll have down periods and up periods. It happens usually in several day streaks, right? So it is very powerful in causing actions, absolutely. But it's just not dependable in the long term. You guys ever hear people say like, oh yeah, I was doing great on a diet, but then I lost motivation, and they quit. Like, you know, motivation comes back just all by itself. You just got to hang in there, and we'll talk about more how to do that. So if we had to graph motivation, it looks like that. It comes and goes. It's good for adherence, but it has its waves and it has its recessions. On the waves, on the ascent, you're sticking to your diet, you're doing great. But on the troughs there, right, on the bottom parts, that's when you're not doing so great on your diet. Let me ask you guys a question. If you have a couple of bad days or a couple of bad meals, can you completely eliminate a caloric deficit with just a couple bad meals? Yeah, heck yeah, you can. Depends on how bad those meals are, right? You've been on the diet Monday through Thursday like crazy, and then low motivation hits, you have a bit of pizza, just a couple slices between friends. Who's counting? Just 18 slices. 21 if we counted all the slices, but you didn't eat the crust on all the slices, so you don't even count those. And all of a sudden, your whole weekly deficit is gone. So this is not going to do. It's a good start, but it's not all the way there. But it is a requirement because, listen, without motivation, we're not going anywhere. So if we're going to help motivate our clients, how are we going to do so? Well, here's the deal. Remember, the definition of motivation is the desire to achieve a goal. You have to have a goal in order to be motivated, by definition. Inspiration pushes you. Inspiration is what you show up to the gym and you're like, all right, right? But you're there, you have no idea why, right? Or you're like, I'm gonna get good meals, and you show up to the grocery store to make healthy meals, and someone's like, hey, can I help you with something? You're like, maybe. Where's the healthy section? And you kind of show up, right? You're there, which is great. But you don't have a goal. You have no idea what's going on. You have to have a goal. Help your clients set goals. So here's the deal. Inspiration is they show up and they say, listen, I want to do a diet. I want to lose weight. Your job in helping them set a goal is how much weight do you want to lose over how long of a time? And then you develop one that is logical, rational, healthy, sustainable, so on and so forth. How many of you folks, actually, a bunch of you personal trainers here, this is great. How many of you are currently trying to talk your clients out of obscene Napoleonic diet goals for the holidays? Heck yeah. They're like, listen, no big deal. I want to lose 80 pounds by Christmas because I got family coming in. And my Uncle Jimmy always makes fun of me. I want to show him up. You're like, how long did it take you to gain 80 pounds? They're like, 10 years. You're going to lose it in 2 months. They're like, yep. Like, do you consider yourself a particularly willful individual? They're like, yeah. I was thinking you'd had tricks. That's why I pay you money, right? So you're like, sure, just never eat again and just train all the time until you die. After death, you'll probably lose a considerable amount of weight, and then you'll meet your goal. So here's the deal. When you help them develop a goal, it has to be a good goal. It has to be aggressive enough to keep them motivated and get them getting results, but not so aggressive that it burns them out. Does that make sense? So maybe if they're like, hey, I want to lose 10 pounds by Thanksgiving, you're like, you know, we absolutely can do that for you, and then you hold them accountable to it. Goals have to be specific. In shape is literally not a goal. Because how do you know if you're getting closer or not? Am I in shape? Go ahead, layer the compliments. I'll wait. You're laughing at me. This is like 5th grade all over again, right? So, I don't know, I'm in some kind of shape. Some people would say I'm in shape. Some people would say I'm not. You have to be very specific. Lose 15 pounds by November 1st. That's a goal. Not a goal for this November 1st. That would be kind of insane. Goals have to be challenging but realistic. You guys all know this, so I won't belabor the point. So far, we're off to a pretty good start. Here's the thing. Motivation comes and goes, so we know already that it's not dependable to keep us adherent over and over and over, to keep us consistent. And motivation is a feeling, right? A lot of your clients will tell you, I'm not feeling motivated today. Don't you kind of want to yell at them sometimes and be like, who cares how you feel? We got stuff to do. Does that make sense? Can you imagine like you work at like a software company and there's like a project due in coding like a week from now. You show up to your boss, you're like, I don't feel like coding this week. He's going to be like, are you okay? You must be, this is the wrong office. Go tell somebody else that and get your code into me by Friday or else, right? Diet fundamentally works the same way. If you don't feel like dieting that week and you cheat off plan, you're just not going to be successful. Now, it's totally okay to not feel like dieting. We're not supposed to guilt trip people, but we can do a little bit better, which is where intention comes in. Intention is a commitment versus a feeling, okay? Intention says, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z in order to execute my goal. Because remember, a goal is just like this sort of hazy thing out in the distance somewhere. An intention actually gives us a plan to follow. It's a commitment to do something versus just feeling like doing something. Like, all right, you got a goal. You want to lose 15 pounds in 3 months. Like, yeah. You really feel like it? Yes. What's the plan? How are we actually going to accomplish that plan? That's intention. Here's the thing. Intention is what gives you the impetus to fill adherence gaps when motivation wanes. Here's the thing. Attention is a promise to yourself to actually stick to the plan. That's all it is. That's your intention, a promise to yourself to stick to the plan. If you're feeling super motivated, do you really need intention? No, not really, right? You're just kicking ass on the diet anyway. Sorry, I'm not supposed to swear. That'll be the last one, right? You're kicking butt on the diet, no big deal. But when your motivation is low, intention reminds you like, hey, remember that promise to yourself? Remember this plan? Don't waver. And it's an important thing, right? So people say, I didn't stick to the plan last week because I wasn't motivated. They're relying on motivation to do something it's not designed to do, which is hang in there all the time, right? Versus, I stuck to the plan because I wasn't feeling motivated, but I had an intention to be successful. I had a promise to myself that I executed, right? So intention hypothetically develops within days of starting a diet plan, and it carries you through the whole diet plan. It is especially important in the first month or so. Why is it not as important after that? We'll get to that in a bit. It has something to do with habits starting to form and taking a huge burden. But especially in the first month, when dieting is new, when dieting is hard, when you want to quit, intention is the promise to yourself, and of course between client and trainer, that makes sure that you are sticking to the plan even when the motivation's not there. Right? So when motivation's not there, intention covers it. Here's what that looks like graphically. So hopefully I don't fall off these steps. It's this little dotted line here that gives you a certain level of adherence that says, I'm going to do this no matter how I'm feeling. So when your motivation is over that line, you're on easy street. But when your motivation is below that line, you have to do something about it to actually execute that level of adherence. Sounds like a pretty good tool. So how do we help our clients develop intention? Here's the thing. Intention to do what? Okay, intention is not an emotion, it's a commitment. Commitment to what? Commitment to execute the plan. Well, here's the deal. There's no such thing as executing the goal. Someone's like, all right, you got to lose 15 pounds. And they're like, okay, do it. They're like, yes. Do what? Well, certainly don't eat a ton because then you just won't, right? But maybe eat a ton now and not a lot later. Who knows? We have to have a plan. Right? Goals aren't good enough. You have to have a plan to execute. A plan of meals, meal numbers, meal frequencies, exercise, so on and so forth. Right? So that you end up doing what you have to do day in, day out, so on and so forth. That's the watermark of adherence. How do you know someone's going to be successful with their diet? When they're actually doing the diet. So there has to be the diet to do. Does that make sense? There have to be a plan. Now, what can the plan be? The plan can be as simple as a daily calorie. That's it, Weight Watchers. Daily calories. If you stick to that plan, you will lose weight, I promise. It can be even more complicated. There could be an app on your phone that does all these crazy algorithms and tell you exactly when to eat your meal and so on and so forth. It can be that complicated. It can be someone, like if you're super rich, you have like a diet butler. Wouldn't that be, how many of you guys would take that job if a billionaire called you up and be like, I want you around 24/7 to physically make me eat all of my meals and swat donuts out of my hand? Would you guys take that job? $500,000 a year to follow Bill Gates around, and every time he gets a donut, you're like, oh, excuse me, Mr. Gates. And he's like, this guy's worth the money, I tell you. He really is. Right? And when he picks up like a granola bar, and he's like, and you're like, Mr. Gates, You're like, all right, this is the best money I've ever paid. Right? So that's intention as a human being, right? So you're going to want to help your client develop a plan or choose a plan with macros, calories, so on and so forth. I'm not going to teach you how to do that. You guys are the experts of that stuff already, but you know what works. And there's a ton of stuff that works. You just have to have someone actually commit themselves to a plan. And the plan details don't matter nearly as much as not having a plan, right? How many of you guys have seen people lose weight on keto? What about intermittent fasting? What about anything? Of course, because they actually stuck to a plan. And it's been shown in the literature time and time again. People that have a plan for their diet lose a ton of weight, keep it off. People that are like, I'm going to just, I don't know, we'll see. They're not very successful most of the time. And of course, just a general rule, the plan has to be strict enough to get results, but probably not so strict that it causes burnout, right? If you're like counting grains of rice for regular people that like live in New York City and have actual jobs, they're probably not going to stick to that. So that's intention. Next, we get to discipline, which is a super, super obvious implication of intention, because we run, as soon as we try to run this intention idea, we get into a problem. Motivation comes and goes. When it's high, you're unstoppable, but when it's low, you have to have something to fulfill your intentions. Intentions don't fulfill themselves, right? You could be like, okay, I know I have to eat a bunch of meals, but I don't want to because I'm experiencing low motivation. Oh, well, looks like these meals aren't getting eaten. That's not good. Did we miss anything from the last slides? No, we had motivation. It's just not a low point. We have intention, but intention is completely toothless unless you bring a dog to the fight. And that is discipline. Discipline is what fulfills your intention. And discipline can be defined as the use of willpower to execute the plan as written. Simple definition, workable definition for discipline. Okay? You got some willpower, hopefully, and right now your motivation is high. So you're going to put it in your pocket and keep it away because you don't need it. But when motivation predictably gets low and you have an intention to meet, you have to use your willpower to meet it. And that was what we call discipline. It's effective. It works, for sure. All that drill sergeant stuff definitely has some stuff to it, but it's exhaustible. So you can't use it all the time, all the time, all the time. It's going to have to sort of adapt to being less utilizable at some point. It does work, but only in the short term, and it exhausts itself, so we can't just use it only. Right? So what does that look like graphed? Discipline, same graph as before, is those that filled in blue areas. Right? You use your discipline when you're in low motivation to get yourself up to adhere enough to actually get your intentions going. That's it. It's super simple. So basically, you look at your like clean meal or whatever that you made for yourself, your apple and chicken breast, and you look at a piece of pizza, and the pizza's like, just eat me, please. And you're like, pizza didn't used to talk. I must be on really low calories. Right? The angel on your shoulder, well, the devil on your shoulder is like, eat the pizza. The angel's like, pizza does look pretty good. Right? That's where discipline comes in, just kicks the devil right in the groin, punches the angel in the face, and goes, you, eat that clean meal right now. And you're like, and you're eating an apple and chicken breast, and people are like, how are you today? You're like, get away from me. You're crying, but you're sticking to the plan. So that's discipline. Typical stuff. So how do you help your clients cultivate discipline? Okay, you know what your intentions are. That's to execute the plans. Really simple. Follow the plan. It's not hard. And you have to use willpower to meet them when your motivation is waning. No problem. Okay? Your number one weapon as a personal trainer to help your clients be disciplined is this. You have to remind them. You have to tell them that it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's just not. There will be tough times. At Renaissance, the company that I help run, we have a big online community of people who do our diets. And they give us feedback all the time. There's this huge message board on Facebook. And one of the comments that, we love hearing all the comments, but one of the comments that kind of puts me a little ill at ease is when people are like, I'm 2 weeks into my plan, and I love it. This is a fat loss plan, by the way, calorie deficit. They're like, I love it. I'm not hungry at all. I love these meals. Everything's great. I'm just going to be a winner. Why do you guys think that puts me a little ill at ease? Because the hard stuff's coming. They might even be adhering, but they're just on a motivation high. Like they got this huge kick from watching transformations. They got inspired. They're motivated. That first sag is coming. So what do we tell folks like that? What do you tell folks like that are like, I'm feeling pretty good. You say, hey, listen, that's great, but it won't last. It'll come back. You'll feel good again. But there will be days, there will be weeks where you're going to have to grit your teeth and do what it takes. And usually you just get this blind stare from them like, okay. They have no idea what you're talking about. But 2 days later, when they're feeling like crap and when they don't want to eat their good food and they want to eat pizza instead, they're going to remember what you said and they'll be like, you know what? I saw this coming. Does that make sense? Right? That's like telling someone before a boxing match, like, you'll be fine. That guy will never hit you. And it's their first boxing match. First time they get hit in the face a bit, I wish somebody told me this was boxing. You're like, no, it's all just sticking and moving, right? You tell someone, hey, listen, you're going to get hit in the face, but you just got to hit them back. They're going to be like, well, at least when they get hit in the face, they're going to be like, okay, I saw this coming, right? And when they tell you, listen, I'm not motivated today. I don't know about this. I feel like quitting my diet. I feel like quitting my training. You just make sure that it's noted. You say, hey, listen, I feel you. I know where you're coming from. I've been there. And then they're expecting like a free pass. Like, yeah, so let's just quit. And you're like, just got to stick to the plan. But I see where you're coming from. And they're like, all right, I kind of knew you were going to say that. Perfect, right? So warn them in advance that they're going to have to use discipline. And then later, You're going to want to make sure that when they come to you and say, hey, I'm not feeling motivated, be supportive, understand where they're coming from, but remind them that they're willful individuals, right? I used to guilt trip my clients. I used to train super rich people in New York City. Isn't that the only kind of people in New York City? It's kind of a, I used to train folks that, are super successful, and they would complain to me that their diet was tough. And I would just guilt trip them like this. I'd be like, oh, the diet's tough. How? They're like, yeah, oh my God, it's crazy. I don't know if I can do it. And I'm like, where did you go to law school? They're like, Yale. Where'd you do your undergrad? Harvard. Were you a bad student? Like, I was the best student of any classroom I've ever been in. Like, oh. Was law school easy? They're like, it was the hardest thing ever. I work 80 hours a week currently at a law firm. I'm a machine. You're like, oh, you're a machine. Do the diet. They're like, damn it, how did you do that? Right? All of the people you ever train that will pay you for personal training are already successful in their own right. You just got to remind them they've got a ton of willpower, right? They're not just like little kids or something, like an 8-year-old. You're like, use your willpower, Billy. He's like, ah. You're like, oh, sorry. I don't even know why I'm training an 8-year-old. Why am I yelling at? Do you guys ever yell at random children in the street? Yeah, why not? Don't do that. It's not a good idea. The police seem to think that's not right. So, you got to remind them. Here's the big one, too. All right, so we tell them, hey, listen, you got to use your willpower. Because you have it, it's good, motivation will come back. Here's another really good thing you can tell them. You have to remind them that things will get easier. Because, preview, habits are going to start kicking in. Things get a lot easier. So sometimes clients will be like, listen, I'm using my willpower, it's been like 4 weeks. I just feel like this is crazy hard and I'm never going to get used to it. Tell them there is light at the end of the tunnel, because there really is, and it's not a lie. And then we get to habit. You guys want to spell this with 2 B's? Whenever I write it out, I always want to put 2 B's in habit. I don't know why. Is Hobbit spelled with 2 B's? See, I start thinking of Lord of the Rings, and then I have no idea where I am. Typical day in my life. All right, so habit. Here's the thing. Using willpower, using discipline is hard. It is hard, right? And willpower drains. It's not an infinite resource. And it can be restored, like you use your willpower a lot sometimes, and then you don't have to other times, and your willpower restores itself, and then you can use it again. That's totally cool. But if you use it too often, or use it too much, if you're just grinding all the time, it's unsustainable. Everyone has a limit. Everyone burns out at some point. Well, of course, everyone in this room, because we're all super hardcore, right? I don't even know what burning out feels like. What are you looking at? I'm just kidding. All right. So here's the deal. Physiologically, in addition to that, diets get harder with time. Notice I didn't say psychologically, I said physiologically. Why do fat loss diets get harder with time physiologically? Because like your body's like, I want more food. What the heck's going on? I'm leaner. I don't want to get leaner. I'm starving to death. Feed me more. And it stinks. Hormones go all crazy. Your hunger pangs start to go crazy. You have to lower your calories even further. It gets tough, for sure, right? But huge benefit. The longer you diet, the more used to the diet you get. Meal prep, training, resisting temptation, shopping for healthy food that is in your diet. They all get familiar, they all get more automated, they all get easier. How many of you in this room, if I let you loose in, one of those nice gas stations off the freeway where it's super well lit and you're like, how many flavors of Monster can a single store have, right? Those kind of gas stations, if I let you in there, how many of you have no problem coming back with super healthy food that fits your diet perfectly? Super easy. You're like apples, protein bars, beef jerky, Diet Coke, out. It'd probably take you 30 seconds. What if we had a gas station shopping spree? Anyway, I've had good ideas and bad ideas, mostly bad ideas. So a ton of you would have no problem doing that. Now, what about your day 1 clients that you have in personal training and diet consultation? If you let them into a gas station and you're like, get healthy stuff, you're on a timer, go. How many of them would you assume a good percentage would never return out of the gas station? They would have like a panic attack. You walk in, they're like, all right, where's the men's bathroom? They're like, huddled on the toilet seat. They're holding like a donut and beef jerky. You're like, you got half of it, right? Kinda. You can come out now. You're not allowed to take food in there before you pay for it, by the way. So in any case, as you diet longer, as you do meal prep, as you do shopping, as you do training, it gets super automated. It gets easier. After a while, it's just something you do, right? You don't even think about it much, right? And this doesn't happen right away. So between, I'd like to say, the 2-week phase of a diet And about the 6-week part of people new to dieting for the first time, that's the hard stuff. That's when the diet gets hard. That's when their initial inspiration's like, Matt, you're on your own, right? Motivation's like, I got nothing. They're grinding their willpower, and habits are not online yet. But after 4 weeks, after 6 weeks, after 8 weeks, habits really start to form, and then they kind of like, I don't know, I just kind of do stuff, and voila, I get results. I feel like I've always been meal prepping, right? Pretty soon, you're not dieting. You're just kind of doing the same thing you've always been doing. How many of you guys are in that part of your dieting phase currently, where you're just like, someone's like, so how do you get motivated to diet? You're like, motivation, I don't know what that means anymore. I wake up, there's a protein container on my desk. I just simply fill a shake, and they're like, do you like that flavor? And you're like, I forgot my shake had a flavor at all. Right? You guys ever answer the question of like one of your clients wants to buy protein powder and they're like, which one's the tastiest? You're like, ooh. You're going to have to rephrase that question into which one's the least not tasty? Then I can get you an answer. And they're like, this one's called chocolate milkshake. Does it taste like chocolate milkshake? You're like, again, the answer is no. But it doesn't taste like toothpaste, maybe, sometimes. Brad Schoenfeld, do you remember the 1990s protein powders? Different era. All right. Those different times back then, folks, people were tough. None of this chocolate milkshake stuff, right? So the longer you diet, the huge benefit of that is the longer you diet, the stronger your habits become, which is awesome. The less discipline you have to use, and the better the adherence gets. Habit is so powerful that in some sense, any attempt at dieting or any attempt at training, any attempt to change your life in some way can pretty much be described as getting to habit. If you can get someone to habit, kicking and screaming or one way or another, they're pretty good. Their adherence rates shoot up like crazy if you can get them through the dark woods in the beginning. All right. We already said that. All right. So what can we do to help habit? One big thing is we make sure to design, especially diet plans, but training as well, in such a way that isn't completely discordant with someone's life. Can you imagine someone who's like a surgeon or something, like a neurosurgeon? And they're like, so I have like a surgery a day, it usually lasts 12 hours, and then that's it. You're like, all right, I'm going to put you at 8 meals a day. You're going to have one of the nurses spoon feed you your myoprotein shakes, and they're like, by that, right? Their brain surgery, like a bit of protein falls into the brain, like, just sew it up. The person wakes up like, just feeling huge. That'd be kind of cool. That's a good experiment. If we put enough protein powder into someone's brain, will they get jacked? Science. Brad Schoenfeld will be carrying out that study within a couple of months. So you want to make sure that if someone has a certain schedule, you want to develop a diet plan that works with their schedule. For example, if they can't realistically meal prep during the day and they work in a skyscraper in Baltimore or something like that, you're like, do you have any sort of gas stations or healthy food stores around that you can go down to lunch and get some food? They're like, yeah, I guess. Then you do them if it fits your macros plan. You guys know what that if it fits your macros stuff? They can't just get the following macros from gas station food, and they're going to do it, and they're going to be super successful. So it's really, really awesome, right? Fad diets are super bad for this. What's one of the #1 downsides of fad diets? There is no habit to form. Like, hey, do you love the keto diet? They're like, yeah. Well, guess what? You're never going to eat carbs ever again. They're like, ever? Like, nope, it's a habit. It's a lifestyle. Like, but I want the carbs. Like, nope. That's why you're a bad person, is because you eat carbs. So we just solved all of your life problems, right? So you want diets that are not fad diets, that are sustainable. And if dieting becomes habitual, then keeping off the weight is super easy. You have someone lose weight eating a good, structured, healthy diet, and after they lose the weight, you let them eat more calories with the same good, structured, healthy diet approaches, and someone's like, is it hard to keep the weight off? And they don't even think, like, what? I don't know. I just keep doing the same thing, and it's great, and it keeps working, right? You can't rush habit. You can't push people into habit. You got to find out what works well and develop that. So if we're going to graph habit, it looks like this. Notice that our adherence goes up so high that on average, we're really close to our line of intention, even at our lowest points. How many of you folks that have good habits wake up in the morning and you're like, oh, I just want pizza and egg rolls and I want to quit life? But it's such a little bit different motivation from what you need to do because it's habitual and easy, that as you say that, you open up your oatmeal container and your whey protein container and you're mixing it. And then you start eating and you're like, I'm fine. It was a low point, right? I didn't knock it off. All right, sweet. So that's habit. We already talked about this. Make sure that all of the stuff they're doing is convenient and designed for them. A meal plan that's easy to automate. Meal prep is great for that. A workout that fits your body and your preferences, so on and so forth. A gym location that's close. All of this kind of stuff makes habit formation super easy. I get really worried when people are like, yeah, I'm doing the gym thing. I'm going to wake up at 4 in the morning. You guys have clients like that? I'm going to wake up at 4 in the morning and run every day. You're like, no, you're not. Where are you going to run? You're going to run in your sleep, right? Or I'm going to drive 45 minutes and, to and from a gym because I like this gym. You're like, that's sweet. Like, I'm not betting on you. So it has to be easy, has to fit the approach. Passion. This will be where I close out the talk. Here's the deal. Passion is when you deeply love the process of dieting. What did he just say? What? That must have been an error in terms. Right? How many of you guys actually like the process of healthy dieting and fitness dieting to your goals? Please, for love of God, someone raise their hand. Thanks for the charity hands. Dr. Kavar, don't you love dieting? No. All right. My own wife shoots me down at my own presentation. You saw it here first. All right. So some people get to loving their healthy meals. They like making them. They like how they make them feel, make them look, so on and so forth. I'm not going to get too crazy into this. I'll just tell you one of those things. Here's number one. Not everyone will become passionate about dieting. So you don't want to be like the psychotic super health nut. You guys know what like who was that guy back in there was like a cult back in the 2000s with the guy with the eyes. You guys remember that guy? He had like I could pull up the picture later. It's like you don't want to be a cultist about dieting. You're like, you're going to love healthy eating. We're all a family. We all eat together. Meal prep is going to be the most fun thing you ever do. And they're like, okay, and I'm out, and they just start running, but they're not in good enough shape, so you catch up to them, and you still stare at them with cult eyes. You're one of us now. And they're like, no! Right? You can't force passion. You can't, and not everyone will have it. If we have like the reluctant 55-year-old dad that wakes up and his kids are playing and he eats his bran muffin, he wants to eat donuts, but even if he sticks to it because it's just habit, that's good enough. How do we foster passion? If it's a possibility, we make sure that we're having tons of fun with our clients, that we get them connected to other people that like healthy food and fitness and fun, and we make sure that they really enjoy the process. And here's another big one, and I'll end with this. Let them revel in their results a little bit. Compliment them. Tough love is great sometimes, but sometimes you got to cut people some slack. They come in after a 3-month hardcore diet and they're training with you and you're like, dude, you're looking great. And some people, you guys have clients that won't cut themselves any slack at all. They're like, I'm nothing to know. Look at you, my God, I'm nothing compared to you. You're like, I'm a professional personal trainer. If you look better than me, I would just hire you. Like, yeah, my lawyer trains me now because I don't know what I'm doing. So you got to let people that work so hard to make fitness a part of their lives, to get fit, you gotta let them allow themselves to experience the pleasure of having an awesome body, having awesome health. So when they're like, I don't know, I think I look okay, you're like, you look great, you're doing awesome. If that fills their ego enough, they could develop a passion for the process. How many people who are passionate do you have to motivate? Do you have to help with discipline? Nobody. Passion is the infinity engine to getting in as good of shape as your genetics will allow. Can you for sure get people passionate? Definitely not, but you can be a positive influence, keep them happy, make sure they're loving the process as much as possible, they're loving the results, they're cutting themselves slack. Mostly work on habits. If you get to passion, bonus points. Cool? Close? Cool, all right. So that's my talk. Questions, comments, concerns, disagreements. We've got 5 minutes? 4 minutes. Better be quick questions. Folks, remember that if you ask a question in one of these things, everyone judges you. Oh, yeah. Yes, you first.
Relapse. So if you've got someone doing a diet program and they relapse and they kind of start to really negative themselves, how would you address that in maybe 6 months?
Totally. So the thing is, oh, yeah, that's right. Repeat the question. I was like, why is that man doing this gesture? It's the dance hour. So the question is, how do you address relapse? How do you address if someone falls off the wagon and then they're super down on themselves? What you can do is pause and let them experience the down on themselves feeling. You don't want to get too hippy-dippy and rush in there and be like, don't you worry about anything. You're a beautiful soul. You didn't do anything wrong. You got to be like, yeah, look, I feel you. It stinks, doesn't it? And they're like, yeah. But after that, sort of you let them be in the muck for a bit. You just take them right back to inspiration and work through it again. Because you can't restart a habit. That's not how it works. You got to re-inspire, so on and so forth. Now, of course, for a lot of those people, those phases will take a lot less time and they'll be right into it. But you got to re-inspire them. And sometimes you can use their falling off the wagon to re-inspire them. Be like, it kind of stinks to just feel pretty unaccomplished, huh? And they're like, yeah. Like, what do you say we do something about it? And they're like, I don't know. And you're like, listen, I think it'll probably work out. And you can give them another piece of data that a lot of people who fail with multiple diets eventually find one that they're successful with, and then they're in shape forever. Because a lot of people, I think they really think, if I fell off the wagon, it's just like this one-shot approach to life. Like, what's that Eminem song? The one chance to blow the opportunity with the, I don't know, with the mom spaghetti, that whole thing, right? Life doesn't work like that. You get like pretty much infinity chances at a bunch of your goals, and dieting for sure, right? It's not like if you fail dieting once and you try it again, like the it clown appears and he's like, dieting again, I see. You're like, oh my God. Right? You can start again. It's not a big deal. So you tell them, but remember, this not a big deal is not something you say first. You let them feel that it's not a great thing. And then when they're really kind of down and they're like, I don't know what to do, you're like, hey, listen, let's start anew. Let's get this right. And don't worry, people fall off and they come back. That's it. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Do you discuss these concepts, or would you suggest discussing these concepts with clients?
What, okay.
Personal trainer?
Sure. Sure. So would I suggest discussing these clients with my client, these concepts if I was a personal trainer talking to my clients? Probably not explicitly for a couple of reasons. They might not have the technical educational depth to understand what the heck you're talking about. Second of all, they just might not have the remotest interest, right? They're like a lawyer at work and they're suing Google or something. And you're like, so anyway, let me teach you about adherence constructs. And they're like, what? They don't. Your job is to apply it to them. They don't have to know anything that goes on behind the curtain, right? If they want to know, hey, listen, so this stuff's kind of been working. What's the deal? Sometimes I don't feel motivated. What's up with that? If they ask you, you give them a little bit of information about it, just the bare necessity. And if they go, you know, I want to know more. Can you explain more? Then you hit them with a super technical science wave, like, oh, you want to know more? PubMed link, PubMed link, PubMed link. And all of a sudden, they don't want to know anything ever again. That'll teach them to ask questions. Am I right? Yeah, but seriously, it's kind of like, and this is kind of, I think, decent advice in general. Just you incrementally increase the amount of knowledge they want to know as they keep asking, right? So you just practice what you do, and if they want to know more, you give them a tidbit. And if they're like, okay, but what about this? Then you give them more and more and more. Because sometimes we tend to overcoach, right? We're like, well, let me tell you exactly why we're doing sets of 10 today. Well, sets of 9, but Schoenfeld et al. Found sets of 9 to be insufficient at 11. So who does that? And blah, blah. And they're like, okay, sweet. I just want to do this. And you're like, all right, sorry. Does that make sense? Yeah. Cool. All right. They tell me that I had to stop, so I will be running away and crying from the burden of my own life. Thank you so much, folks.